You will call order at 7:31. Good morning. We'll just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First order of business is recommended actions, approval of minutes from January 8th. I know Jenny sent them out. If anybody has, well, needs to look for a motion to approve the minutes from January 8th. Moved by Mr. McCaffrey, seconded by Mr. Kravitz. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Call the vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. If there's no objection, I would just like to move, since Mr. Conley's here to discuss the PLA, I would like to move a new business item. Where is it? Oh, number 4. Just move that up, and we'll do that now, so that we can get that out of the way. No objections? Okay. Okay, Mr. Conley, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So the PLA hasn't really changed much from the last presentation that we had. There was one additional clause introduced by Dimeo. The union was agreeable to it. From the recommended changes from Dimeo, there were a couple that were not accepted. From our perspective, from my perspective, on behalf of you all as the client, they were all de minimis changes that didn't really move the needle for me in one direction or the other. It's still largely the same document that we saw some time ago, with the exception of some additional language in regard to the Janus provisions and some changes in making clear that there's no requirement for union dues in any circumstance. I think that this board has had a lively discussion on that front, and I think that the improvements that came out of that discussion are something that I've adopted across all of my PLA work. So I want to thank you all for that. But largely, it's a.
Do we get royalties?
I'll be sure to put them in the mail. So, I think what we have here in these ride-funded school programs is a market expectation along these lines. I think every single round of negotiations makes these documents a little bit better, and I don't think that this is an exception to that rule. I think this document's a little bit better than any other PLA that I've worked on. With that, I'm happy to answer questions, but I also don't want to, this would be about the 3rd or 4th time that we've had the opportunity to discuss what is largely the same concept and largely the same document.
So last revision.
I'm done. They're done. Greg's here. I think good conversation with the with Costa a few days ago. And so, I think everyone's kind of in a good place on where the document is right now, and I don't think there's any objections.
Any questions for Mr. Conley?
So the letter that came from the Rhode Island, the union, that was attached that said union dues must be paid. So that letter goes away, or they amended that letter?
I don't believe within the letter there's a requirement that union dues are paid. I think there's a requirement for key jobs to be exempted. I'd have to pull up the details in the letter, but there's nothing in the letter that improves performance requirements on us. Everything in the letter relieves us of duties.
So that's Appendix E. Right? That's okay. So item 2, it says, there's a spelling error in there too. It says, notwithstanding the terms and conditions of this agreement, any non-union contractor, excuse me, it says many use, I think it's supposed to say may use its key personnel to perform work on this project on the condition that any and all key personnel that are trade persons become members of the respective union required under the PLA. So
I think that's the one I was referring to.
yeah, so excuse me. So that would just say that it's whatever key personnel is, that they're forced to join the union, right? Isn't that what that said?
I didn't understand it to mean that. I understood that to be an option for the sub to choose whether or not to use certain personnel.
Okay, Say that again?
So I read that to be an option to choose their own personnel, versus being required to have union personnel do the work at the Star. So I understood it to be an increased option for the contractor.
So they can use their own people, they don't have to go to the hall and grab people.
Yes, that's what I understood.
But
the
those
intent
people
of
will
the
still have
article
to
be.
pay dues.
Right.
Right, those
That was
people,
the issue, it shouldn't be.
right, right, so those people on the condition, so it's conditional, so the condition is, if I'm the business owner, right, and I want Carmen to do that work, if that's a key personnel, and I think that's addressed further back in the document.
Mhm.
And if my option is to, I can use my key personnel, but at that point, they have to join the union the way I read this, right? That's how I would read that. So the question I would have is, you know, and a lot of these things, I'm sure a lot of it's in there just in case, how prevalent is something like this? You know, I defer to you guys in the trades, right? How prevalent is the situation where contractor wants to use their own key personnel? Does it happen a lot, or does it just not happen that often, but that's in there just in case?
So I think it would be, it depends on the project. So key personnel is usually something that comes up when you're in like an atypical portion of the construction, something that's used a bit more rarely than some other area of construction. And again, the way I read the letter is this is an additional benefit. Them said the unions of trades are essentially saying we would not object if something like this occurred. This isn't a performance requirement on our behalf. We are not sort of a signatory to that letter. The letter is saying we won't grieve a fact pattern that follows this pathway. So I don't read it to be an obligation on behalf of ourselves to require that union dues are being paid. We also can't do that. So, you know, to the extent that that would come up, we would review our obligations relative to Janus. And if it did rise to a grievance, the beauty of the PLA is that there's a really quick pathway to get into a resolution without any work stoppage. So to the extent that we take the position that that's something that we cannot lawfully do, we can grieve that matter if and we can take our action if and when it comes up, and the union can choose whether or not to grieve that matter if and when it comes up. But I understand the concern based on the language in there. Within the context of the letter as a whole, I was unconcerned because it's a relative increase in authority and unilateral decision-making on behalf of the schools compared to other PLAs that I've worked on and prior to this letter being submitted. I do understand the concern based on the language in there. I also just think within the context of the letter, it's not a net negative, it's a net benefit.
Okay, so is that language, is that something that's relatively, in your experience when you craft these, does that typically show up in most of them, or has it, or is that a relatively new development?
Historically, that sort of language was within the PLA itself. If you review the PLA itself, it's not in the PLA itself. Right. So you can see how that's sort of a moving in a direction where there's more autonomy on behalf of the owner.
Yeah, all right, so, and I can understand, I think, Mr. Lewis, I think philosophically you have an issue with PLAs, and I understand that.
No, what that means, you can use anyone you want, but they have to pay the union. So that basically keeps all the non-union people away. They don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would Mr. Conley be willing to eliminate that provision?
It's their letter. So we
the
didn't
building
negotiate.
trades letter, right?
We haven't agreed to that. We haven't said this is definitely what we're going to do. They've said, if you act in this manner, we will not grieve it. So we're not saying we will act in this manner. We're accepting the option that they will not grieve if we act in that manner.
Who won't grieve?
The unions. There's no performance obligation on us based on this letter.
So that, Armin's point, if I'm a non-union guy, I don't have to pay dues and they're not gonna grieve it.
No, we will have to pay dues.
In general, underneath the PLA, there's no requirement that any non-union member pay dues, full stop. In the letter, they're saying, if you choose to use key personnel, we also will not grieve it as long as they are paying dues. This is a choice that's being presented to us, not an obligation that we're being required to do.
Can you say that one more time?
No, I agree.
So in the letter is essentially a choice, not an obligation. We can choose to behave in that manner if we find it in our best interest, but we don't have to. Now, to the extent that that goes up against the Janus decision, and we are unable to make that choice, we just wouldn't. So we would either choose to not use key personnel or to use key personnel in a way that we thought conformed with constitutional law. And if the trades felt that that was a violation of our agreement, they could grieve it. In that instance, even if we're coming to a front, there is no work stoppage. So I think what we're looking at in terms of the pragmatic reality is it's a step in a direction where there's increased autonomy for the property owner, a step in the direction of decreased requirements for union dues overall. And even if there is a confrontation, there's still no work stoppage.
Okay.
I think I would rest more comfortably in the formulation of the contract and how it references that exhibit. If council is saying it really has no standing in the contract, what would you say, it was exhibit E?
Appendix E.
It's however, appendix E is described earlier in the contract. That's what matters. And if he's saying it has less weight or it's not.
Key personnel excludes all trades workers, correct, attorney? You know, it's a supervisor, it's someone doing layout, someone measuring, but anyone performing work is not key personnel.
I understand to also mean a highly particularized work.
Specialty work,
Probably.
What is the definition of key personnel?
I don't know that we have a defined term of art within the contract.
So what general, I wish Demian was here, but I know that when we were working on the PLA, we provided a list of the main trades in Rhode Island, whether or not they had a union presence. Do you recall from that, what those shops were that did not have a union presence in Rhode Island?
Off the top of my head, no, we go through every single one of the contracts that are applicable, and we also, as to each area of the work being done, we go through the labor availability. It's been a few months now, but if there was a particular area there where we thought there was insufficient union labor available, it would have been identified. To my knowledge, in this contract, off the top of my head, there was no areas in which it was identified insufficient union labor. There was a specific concern on pace to market. And if we did not actually get the bids out and enter into contracts soon enough, the glut of new projects coming on could have created a scenario where there may be labor shortages. But that is not something that we've identified as a cause for concern just yet. We believe that because of the size of these projects and the timing of them, we will avoid that issue.
Any other questions for Mr. Conley? I always remember the public line comment.
Simple question.
Yes.
I'm a simple person. The appendix is after page 40. Is that part of the agreement or not part of the agreement?
It's a part of the agreement, but it's basically, when you're asking, is it a part of the agreement? Does it create mutual performance obligations? No. Is it included within the agreement such that the agreement, if I ever hand out that agreement, it includes that document within it? Yes.
I'm just looking at the signature pages and I don't see any signature page on that appendix. So is it accepted by all parties?
Yeah, so there wouldn't be, because we wouldn't be agreeing to perform.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Conley? From anyone else? Okay. All right, hearing none. Mr. Mancini, I can't take public comments. We don't have that on the agenda for the
I just want
item.
to help clarify the
So
appendix. But if you don't
go
want
ahead,
to-
go ahead.
So the appendix letter was drafted before the Janus decision. It was really a letter to eliminate the double benefit issue, which is the primary issue that makes a non-union contractor not competitive. And what that is it alleviates the non-union contractor from having to pay their benefits and in addition to paying the union benefit funds. So there's no financial difference. Since Janus, as I was going to say, Bill, I apologize to my, as Bill indicated, we can't force anyone to become a union member. Well, the unions can't after Janus. So that language is maybe stale, but it was a letter that was drafted before Janus. So if a non-union member does not want to become a member, by federal, we cannot force them. So I don't think there's any reason for non-union contracting. And then, of course, I'm looking at the benefits of the PLA, which I'm looking to.
Okay, but does the letter need to be included in this or can it be removed?
So the letter was used in our study as a means of identifying whether or not there was distinction in labor costs. It's kept within the PLA just for basically by reference that our study was based on this being the case. The PLA is now identifying this as still being the case, again, as a means to make sure that the labor costs are even. Other than that, I mean, I wouldn't say it has to be included. It's certainly something that can just exist, and we've made reference to it throughout the study as well. I do want to be clear. I know that maybe it seems like striking a fine line here, but from my perspective, a contract either creates a performance obligation or it doesn't, and there just isn't a performance obligation on the contractor or the property owner, this board, etc., as a result of that letter. It's basically an offered benefit, but no requirement that we take any action accordingly.
But if it conflicts with Janus, why don't we just get rid of it? It's, as Mr. Mancini said, it's stale. It doesn't really, there's a conflict with federal law, so why not just get rid of it?
Do you want to take that or for clarification?
From my eyes, the value is making sure that the labor costs are even. That was the benefit of it.
Mr. Mancini,
Just
want to clarify that one?
The insurance of the double benefit is about that. That's the real value. There's no double payment of that.
But in exchange for that benefit, the non-union worker would have to pay dues.
No, I mean, no matter what the letter says, we can't break constitutional law. There's just no two ways about it. And if we broke constitutional law, I assume we would be promptly sued. If someone sued us for failing to break constitutional law, I would enjoy writing that motion to dismiss.
Okay. I get that. Anyone else? All right, hearing nothing else, I want to call a vote on this. So, okay, we're looking for a motion to approve. The motion to approve the PLA as submitted. As presented today.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Holmes, seconded by Superintendent Denver. Any further discussion?
Let's go to school committee.
Yeah, this will school committee. All right, so I'll call vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? All in favor? Was it? One opposed, Mr. Lucy. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to the original agenda. And next will be project administration as D. There's no bid document release authorization. Yes, we have a bid review and award, bid number 25-0010, land appraisal services for Colgate High School.
This is for the land appraisal services for that federal land reallocation that we're trying to do. There's an acre of land on Colgate site, and then I think it was Aldrich, and the other name of the school escapes me. But we got one bid for $9,500, I believe, and I think our recommendation would be to rebid this. We'd like to have a more competitive environment before making a selection, so.
So we have time, we can rebid that, that's not a problem.
Yeah, I believe we have time. I think it's going to be a quick rebidding process. We'll probably have results within a couple of weeks. So yes, that's my recommendation.
All right, so we'd be looking to table this,
Please.
The one company that did was from out of state.
Right.
And, it seems extraordinarily high.
Yeah,
Does DEM require you use the state bid list or do they have a preferred?
They
Can you
don't.
just check with them to make sure?
Yeah, we
That
can,
might solve your.
might help give us some.
yeah, we'll check through the master purchase agreement, see if there's a master purchase agreement. Because I believe there is. So we can-
Yeah, I mean, I have looked at the NPA list. I wasn't able to find anyone that sort of fit the bill, so to speak. So we'll continue to look for comparable firms to BBG, and they do this kind of work. It's a type of firm we want to have, but again,
Well, what's the purpose of the?
it's a requirement. You could maybe speak to it
It's
best.
a DEM requirement because of the federal designation on the properties. They're what they call an F6 or land and water. They were purchased with land and water conservation funding was applied to all these properties in the late 70s to build like parks and pot lots and ball fields and stuff like that. So we have to comply with this DEM process, which is in effect two different types of appraisals that have to be done in order to get clearance to build the projects.
In this document, it looks like they're all certified real estate appraisers. That's what it looks like the credentials are. I would imagine there's hundreds, if not thousands of real estate appraisers in Rhode Island.
Yeah, but the two types of appraisals, they call one a green book and then a yellow book or something, and you gotta, it is a bit unique. In that regard, so a conversation with DEM will help clear, sometimes they'll give you a list of, they won't recommend one, but they'll give you a
We'll
list.
give them a call.
Yeah, Tom, thanks for that advice. Yeah, we'll follow up on that.
I'm just looking at their credentials. They have real estate appraisers at the end of the day, and that's what they're accepting in this process.
so if you feel it's a little too high, and that it could
Yeah,
come in.
Like Mr. Gothard said, I think we're both a little surprised by the fee. I think they're qualified. I mean, they just recently completed a project in Massachusetts I'm somewhat familiar with, so they do have the expertise. But again, I just, fiscally speaking, we thought it'd be responsible to just make sure we get a competitive bid.
I don't have an issue with that, so, any objection to just tabling this? Okay, moved by Mr. McCaffrey. Yeah, so we'll vote on it. Moved by Mr. McCaffrey, I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is change orders. Right, okay, first one, Steve, Alborg, item A.
We'll take these all one at a time. They all require us to make.
Alborg for $27,218.
So this is number 11 over at Holloman. Additional electrical work for $27,218. This was required by 6 electrical SKEs that were issued by the engineers, firms that were not on the plans. So after review, they came out with these SKEs and added some work to the project. Cabinet unit heaters and bathrooms that were required, that really required. So we seek your approval.
What's an SKE and
Yeah.
why
It's
did
a
they miss it
sketch.
the first time around?
It's an electrical sketch, issued by the engineer in response to questions by the contractor.
How did they miss it the first time around?
I can't answer that question. They were not included in the plans. Should they have been? Probably. Steve, do you want to answer?
Something that could be seen. It's not like it's hidden behind a wall.
No, I looked it up all over the places and they were not, our engineer did not include it in the original drawings, unfortunately.
What specifically are we talking?
It's on either that we need to
I
involve.
included the SKUs in the package. I don't have with me, but you got this. There was a couple circuits missing, the heat pumps, missing heaters in 6 bathrooms and a mechanical. Yes, they should have been included in the plans. They were not. So once again, you get into the discussion. We would have paid for it. If they were included in, we are. So now we're paying for it now. Are we paying a slight premium? Perhaps. Mr. Cagno and I and Mike all agreed that the numbers were fair and they were not gouging us.
Right, after we received the cost of putting those items, I gave it to our engineers so that they could verify and check on the prices, and they are within today's normal prices.
All right, so I mean, in layman's terms, okay, your guy missed it, right?
And like, yes, and like Steve said, today we're paying premium price. We would pay anyway if he would have it included, but we're just paying a little bit more.
So why should we have to pay a little bit more because the person missed it in the beginning? I get it, you would have had to pay for it anyway, but now we're paying more because
But
it was
it's hard
missed.
to define exactly what we are paying on. We are assuming that there is a slight premium on a change order. It's very hard to determine what that premium might be. They have kept any additional costs down on the contractor side. Allboard's not gouging at all. You know, I always get in a quandary on these change orders because yes, it should have been included. Yes, it was missed, but yes, we would pay for it anyway. Okay, so now do you want to go back to the engineer for the premium? That's up to the trade.
I think it's our due diligence to
Yeah,
try
you know
to,
what that premium is? I mean,
That's what I'm saying.
Even if you don't know
I can't say
what
I can't say what the bids would have been, okay? I can't say that. I can only assume that we're paying a bit more because they're doing some additional paperwork, they're doing this, they're doing that, and they're putting some profit on that maybe they might not have put on when they bid. But what that amount is, I can't say.
Who can?
At this point, they made the error. Why do we have to?
But what the problem is determining what that amount is. I mean, we still pay for this work to be done on the bid package. So now we're trying to determine, is there a difference between the bid, what was been in the bid package and what we're paying now? I can't determine that.
is there any kind of a standard, in general, like there's a 2% markup in general, whenever you have any of these, is there a standard?
As anybody who's been in the business knows that when you're bidding, you're bidding with profit, you're bidding with overhead. Here, they're giving you the cost of it, they're giving you the labor, they're giving you the legitimate low profit and overhead. Is that a premium?
Yeah, they're limited by the contract. Subcontractor can only put an overhead and profit number of 6% on their number. And the GC, if they're doing the work, only allowed 10%. So they can't gouge on, they can't throw an extra 20% on that item. They're bound by their contract. It's a 6% and 10% max on all change order overhead and profit numbers, which is in line with
Yeah, but
how
you
they
don't,
bid the project.
you don't know the relationship between the GC and the sub too. The sub could have an inflated number that.
Well, we see all the backup.
Right,
We
I get it.
demand that we get the backup.
Right.
We get invoices from the company they're buying the products from.
Yeah.
So, all the backup is there. It's not like they're just shooting us a number.
Right.
We get from the
We're looking
supply
at labor,
house.
We're looking at labor, we're looking at the material. If labor seems unreasonable, we'll tag that, flag it. We haven't seen that.
We ask for hours, hourly breakdowns, hourly rates, and how many hours man hours they're gonna take to do the job. So we need everything broken down, material and labor, before we can approve a change estimate.
There's
So
certified payroll on this, Jim,
There is.
there's certified payroll, yes.
matched to the job they're doing, piece they're doing.
We don't do that. The payroll affidavits go to the owner.
Get it accurate of what they.
Well, what we try to do is whenever possible, we try to do a time and materials. We find it's better, but this was the immense amount of work. It was we requested,
See, you know, what I mean, it's like, you're saying 6%, 10%, so you're never gonna know what they're really doing with labor if you can't match the
No.
certified payroll for the time on that task. So you really don't know what the job is.
You're never gonna know exactly unless you had certified payroll, but you can
For that
get within,
particular
yes,
task.
you can get within a ballpark. Pretty close
we've
ballpark.
looked at the hours and we don't feel that they're got it. You know, it works both ways. If they go over on a hard bid, it's their bad. They lose.
We're in a position we need heat in those areas, right?
Right. I mean, the work needs to get done. Yes, it was missed. We've done our due diligence to ensure that we're not getting stuck. So that's all we can do is make our recommendation, that we believe this is fair. And that the contractor and the subcontractor are not gouging.
Steve, just pay 10%. Come on, take that as a penalty. Make everybody happy.
If you want, you know, this board can vote to go back to the engineer. I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
can I just
You
say
know.
something? This gives me pause and concern as we move forward. I mean, as we move forward into these two new buildings, we need to be very careful things don't get missed. And
We agree.
that just,
And if I
and
may.
I know it's the obvious, but this is very concerning to me.
First of all, these renovation projects are much different than the high school projects. First of all, these are done, at land speed, these designs. They're not, we're not taking years to design it. We're taking a couple months to put these packages together. Yes, they missed it. They have apologized. However, work still needs to be done. I don't think you can relate this to the high schools. Yes, we need to do, and these are the engineers, these are not the architects, and the architects will be reviewing, and the OPMs will be reviewing all projects.
So just also, there's a different project delivery method. Those are general contractor bid projects. We have construction manager at risk. So the difference is that our construction manager is reading the plans as they get developed. So they can point out, that's part of their job. We're paying them to point out holes in the drawings now. As opposed to just bidding a set of drawings, the contractor reviews them, and sometimes contractors will look for holes. I don't think this is a case, just for what I'm hearing in terms of how the project went, but sometimes they'll look for holes to make profit. If the CM misses something, that's us on the CM saying, we're paying you, how much here? $20,000 to be looking for these every single month. You should be finding these. If you don't, you're gonna need to figure out a way to pay for it. So that's the difference in the delivery method.
That makes me feel a little bit better.
That's all I have to.
and these renovation projects, I mean, there's never been a perfect set of drawings put out by anybody. I mean, there's always things that are unforeseen, things that come up later.
I mean, the other thing is, it also depends on the contractor. You look at Open Beach, we have a list of 50 change orders where we have a contractor that's looking for holes. These came up, it was a miss, it was brought to our attention. They need to get done, and they've only got 10 on the projects the same size. So, much different mindset on a contractor and a subcontractor. And they have done work at no cost. So nobody's gonna eat this.
Yeah, well, from where I see, I mean, obviously mistakes have been made. I understand that. I think to Candace's point, I think it's valid. When it does happen and we have to fix it, we fix it. And, I have no reason not to have confidence in what these numbers are. I don't. It's not that I don't have any confidence in them. But at the end of the day, it's the perception, right? That which does more damage than what the actual dollars are. Because, to the average person, they'll say, well, like, we didn't mess it up. Right? We do have to pay. I understand that, right? So, so then the question isn't really who screwed up. The question is, okay, how much are we going to pay to fix this? And how much is on us versus how much is on other parties, right? So, I mean,
And the way I always look at it is, should have been included in the documents, yes. Okay, so if it should have been included in the document, it's really not an extra, we should have been paying for this. The question is there a premium that we're paying for it? Okay, there could be a slight thing, I don't see it on this. So there's no red flags, there's no, I don't agree with this, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, I can do that. Mr. Lucy, I gotta be honest with you, I like the idea, of maybe just kicking it back, and just coming back to you guys, hey, let's have a little more conversation. To see, maybe we can shave something else off, right? Shave a couple of thousand off. Right? I mean, it's a goodwill gesture on both sides. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my feeling, because
But some of these could be self-generated too. In other words, when they're bidding these projects, they know if something's missing when they're bidding it, and they don't send an RFI. They save it for later, so they can hit us with a change order. So, we gotta consider that factor too.
Did the heaters have an electrical circuit that was identified on the electrical drawings for the heaters? They were just
I don't
shown
know.
on the mechanical drawings? 'Cause
No,
sometimes.
the heaters were missed totally, and then there's some circuits for heat pumps
Right.
that are missing.
Right. So they showed the heat pumps mechanically, but didn't show them electrically being powered, right?
Right, so you know how that goes.
Yeah,
That's
I do know.
Yeah.
Want to share with us how you know, Armin?
Change order 272.
Very deep. So I'm just trying to figure out what the consensus is here.
Is the next item similar to this? The
No,
next
next
elbow?
item is
Okay,
different.
all right, no.
Next item is totally different.
Well,
When
I
we
see,
get to Open Beach, we're gonna have a much bigger discussion.
I just say let's move on. I make a motion to approve all board for $27,218 for PCO number 11.
Second?
Engineer.
I'll second.
Sure.
Any other discussion for this, for the all board? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Two nays. Two nays, Ms. Calori, Ms. Calori, Ms. Gambrick, and Mr. McCaffrey. Okay, motion passes 5-3. Okay, next. PCO number, what is it, Steve? 12. 12, all board, 21,616.
This is a request by the owner. I'm requesting this. What we found when we put if you know Holloman, there's a courtyard, by the library, the auditorium, and the main entrance. When we did the window wall in the library, we opened up and the fascia above is rotted. So once we opened that up, pulled the windows out, we saw the fascia itself is gone. So rather than do texture 111 again, and a wood frame, we're looking at, I wanted a long-term maintenance-free solution. So we got a number from the roofer to go down a panel system, vertical above the windows, to eliminate this problem ever happening again. So it's a very fair number. It's a permanent solution. It matches the window frame and the panels, and it needs to get done. And it could not have been picked up on design. It was behind. So, seek approval.
Okay. All right, looking for a motion to approve PCO number 12. So moved by Mr. Lucy. Second by Mr. Kravitz. Any discussion? I like the idea that it's maintenance free, so no one has to go through about painting it or forgetting to paint it or whatever it is.
So texture 111 is not a real permanent solution.
No, it's just, if you don't maintain it, it's a sponge.
Used to be.
Well, now 20 years later, it's not.
Okay, all right. No other questions? I will call vote. All in favor of PCO 12?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next, PCO item C, EW Berman, PCO number 20.
All right, so
11,905.
So items E, D, C, D, E, F. Committee a couple of times. They were denied by the engineers, the architect, and the committee. I was requested by the contractor and the electrical subcontractor.
Hey, Steve, can I interrupt you for 1 second? For some reason, our owl stopped working. So hold on, I don't know how to fix this damn thing. I think we're still recording though. It went off, the camera went off. But we're still recording. Yeah. Yeah, it was working just fine. All of a sudden the screen went black.
Sleep mode, same.
It says it's recording.
Yeah, it's recording. So if I turn camera on, turn camera off, just camera's on, but it's
Did
just.
you hit the on button on the owl again? Did you try it?
Is there an on button on this thing? Let's see. Brandon, you were a tech guy. There's a button right there. Same button. That's a volume button. There's a power button. Lights would come on. That's a mute. Yeah, that's a mute. So we're still recording. I don't know why the camera went off. It's all plugged in. And we're recording, so we'll just keep recording. If we can't get the video up, which is too bad.
See if Jeff can kind of.
Yeah, if he's around. We can still discuss this. Seriously. Yeah, I just don't want to stop recording. That could raise everybody's suspicions about it. Should be the power button on the back. Yeah. That's never happened before. I just. I caught it. Yeah, I know. I wonder.
Yes. I think that's from the crane, it's from now. That's called for high. I get a letter. I got a decision to say.
My job. All right. Let's just keep going. And if the video comes back on, it comes back on. Pretty faces will be shown. Okay, so Steve, all right. EW Berman. Oh, superintendent. Good morning, Mr. Napoli. We're still recording. Didn't want to stop recording, but the owl's just no juice to the owl.
It's just all power, that's all power. It's not yet.
Everything's plugged in. There's a little green light on.
Which computer's acting as the brain, if you will? That one right there?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you in. Let's move that Java. All right, let's
There's a
see.
green light on underneath it. Something. Yeah, underneath.
Oh, it's chirping. It's chirping. And then this is just a data signal.
Unplug and plug it back.
Yeah, it's just data though. It's not supplying power, right? So which one of these is the power? That's the big question here. That looks like it could be.
Yeah, that has the
little spaghetti here.
It has the box attached to it.
Let's see if this is the brick.
No, the brick's underneath.
I hate to just kill this. Well, I mean, honestly, it's not gonna bring anything down, just quick juice. So I'm gonna kill this for a second. That'll power reset that. Lights just came on. Is that when in doubt, reboot? I don't know, maybe. Am I allowed to say that?
You can say that, as long as you're not swearing or cursing or anything like that. So. Yeah, now the lights went out again. Yeah. Oh, we're still recording, so that's. Jen, when you recap the meeting, just won't see our pretty faces.
I'm talking to the owl from here.
Oh, okay.
You were. Yeah. Join a meeting, you control your meeting owl. So do you have an active session going on right
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
I don't think it's detecting.
All right. I'd rather not stop the recording and start it because that just creates
That might be the answer, but right.
Yeah, we'll just
feel your
keep going.
struggle there.
Yeah, we'll just keep going. Okay, thank you, Mr. Natolo.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Okay, Steve, we're D.W. Berman for,
Okay.
11,905.
Items C through F, 3W Berman, we will take them individually, and I'll give an explanation for each. But they were denied by the engineer, the architects, and the committee at one point in time. They requested an arbitration meeting. So we went to the engineer's office. We had representatives from Berman, Wyman Electric, the district, myself, and the architectural firm. So I listened. I said I would bring these forward. I agreed on some things. I did not agree on the other, but it's ultimately up to the committee to make the final decisions on these. And we will do so as we move forward. So item number C, which is
11,905.
905, PCO number 20. List. This was on the drawings. We have very specific notes about duct penetrations through walls, confliction with existing electrical conduits, and that the contractor and the electrical contractor own that. And we got to steel, where we're making new steel connections, putting in new steel members. There was no note about existing conduits, and their argument is that it was not included on the plans. They do not own it, and it's extra work. I reviewed it. I said I would bring it back forward because I did see that information is not on the plans or in the specs. So I said I would bring it forward and ask again if it would be approved.
You said the architect and the engineer rejected it, or?
Originally rejected it, but at the meeting, it was clear that it was not on the plans.
Motion to approve.
Second. It's obvious.
Right. Okay, all right, so moved and seconded, any discussion? Okay, you guys are comfortable with this?
We are.
Okay, all right. Hearing no questions, we'll call a vote on E.W. Berman for $11,905. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next one, Steve.
Number D,
$7,879.
31. So this has to do with an RFI number 38, in response to power to the VMS. This is kind of very vague in my mind. What it was unclear, and to me, the way the specs were written on this, it was just not clear. My suggestion as we move forward is that it's very clear in the plans and specs that it's written that the contractor, mechanical contractor, electrical contractor, and control contractor need to meet and decide who owns what, period. Okay, that was not clear. The electrical contractor felt that he did not own any of it. I told him that was BS because they do own a portion. So my suggestion was they own half. So, the original total was 15,759. My suggestion was that we owe them 7,879, because of the vagueness of the way it was written.
So
But I don't have any strong opinion on this.
Steve, the vendor that is doing the building management system,
Yes, but
are they even qualified to power that up, or do you?
yeah, no,
typically have an
there has to be electrical power to it. Okay, but because by law, we have to have more than one, you can't just have basis of design in there. You need to have multiple options. So different systems require different BMS requirements, basically. And the way, without coordinating between the contractor, mechanical contractor, control, and electrical, nobody's know what's gonna go on. I think it should have been done beforehand. I have a little bit of a problem with this, but it is vague in the plans. But that's why I offered the compromise.
So there's a plan to fix these kind of
Fix it going forward,
potentialities
yeah.
going forward, right?
Mhm.
Because this is just a simple communication issue.
Communication issue with the general contractor to the subs,
Well, I think that once again, we're rushing to get the numbers in to get these projects going. And the bid process is very, very tight. And it just was not shooting out during the. And the one thing I can say about Wyman Electric, I mean, they went way out of their way. They saved us $100,000 by, coming up with options, which allowed us to get the switch gear in early. If you remember, there was a $100,000 change order to be done. We were able to pay for the accelerated shipping and manufacturing of the switch gear. They have gone out of their way. I'm not trying to hurt these guys, but I'm trying to consider, you guys can, the committee can move forward how they feel is right.
Motion to approve PCO number 31, $7,879.
Moved by Mr. Lucy, second? I'll second. Second by Mr. Kravitz as well. Okay, any further discussion?